first we're gonna just see how can you create the new project. Okay, so the Visual Studio you use for everything. Either you use for SSIS or SSRS or SSAS. Okay, the business intelligence tools has 3 tools, right? So if you go to new to the files, and if you go to the new and click on project, okay, then it's going to give you all the different options that you can do in the business intelligence setting. So in here you see analysis services, integration services, and the reporting services. So in here, click on the reporting services and say report server project. Okay, we're not gonna do through the wizard because wizard is like step by step. You define, okay, this is I want to do, but we're gonna see how can you build the reports from the scratch. Okay, so the wizard is more for like the person who don't have much idea how to create the data source, how to create tables, or those kind of things. So the wizard is pretty easy. It just takes you step by step, but we're gonna build each and everything in the SSRS from the scratch. Okay, like create a separate data source, then create a data set, and all those things. So click on report server project, and then make sure you are in the right folder. You have the folder, wherever you want the project to be created. So I will just do SSRS and then say Feb 2016. Okay, all right, and then I'm going to say this as reports. Okay, all right, so just give the name in there and you define where you want your project to be. Make sure you put the location what you know. Don't put on the default location, otherwise it will be hard for you to find that project because you need report some time to move around. So make sure you know the location. Okay, so if you click OK, it's gonna open up the report server environment. Okay, now we need to understand a couple of different things before we start doing the reports. The reports can be built on top of different sources. Okay, the report can be built out of the analysis services or the cube. The report that is nothing but the cube is nothing but the multi-dimensional database. Okay, now when you do the reporting on the multi-dimensional database, SSRS is when you want to pull the data from the cube, you need to learn MDX. You don't need to learn MDX, but if you want to pull the data, you need to know the MDX. But in the SSRS, the MDX will be generated automatically. So we're going to use the GUI in order to graphical user interface in order to write the query. So like in the SQL, you can use the interface. So the same for getting the data from the cube, which is a multidimensional database. We're going to use the interface of the SSRS to write those queries. Okay, and so it's basically you're going to select, okay, what are the attributes or what are the columns I needed and what are the measures I needed from that cube and how you want it on the report. So we're going to do report practice on the multidimensional database that I'm going to provide you in bit. Once we reach to that point, I'm going to provide you the cube and that you need to install, and we'll go over that process. Okay. Now, the second thing is you can build the report directly on your relational database. Okay. So let's say if your OLTP system, if it's very small, the report can be run directly from that. Okay. If it's a huge OLTP and it doesn't have much resources, then you have a separate system like a data warehouse or ODS from which you want to create the report. So, but basically the underlying database structure will be your relational database. Okay. So the source could be anything. It could be data warehouse, it could be ODS, or it could be a relational OLTP system. Okay. Now, when you do reporting, so we're gonna start with reporting on the relational database, and then we're gonna move to the cube, okay, or multidimensional database. So those are the two main sources that you can do for the reports. Okay. All right. Now, do you know for the SSRS, okay, you don't need to understand what you need for the SSRS is just the SQL basic SQL knowledge. If you know the SQL, that's what you need to know. The SSIS is not related with SSRS. Both the tools are very independent. Okay. So the SSRS is more for reporting, getting the data from your reports, and the SSRS reports are usually used when you have the reports which are run every day, and those are ad hoc reports. So what company will do, they know if they need certain reports every day, they create a dashboard for the users where they go in and take the report from there. So the data people don't need to support every day for those reports. Okay. So the SSRS is more like a reports that are needed by like most of the person in the company, and that can be taken down from the dashboard. Okay. It's nothing like, so there are certain reports that needs to be um, that are requested by the user, and that's the one-time report. So if you have one-time report, you probably not gonna. It's not a good idea to do those reports in the SSRS. Okay, so the SSRS is more a solution for the reports that are needed in the long run and that are required every day. So, but if it's ad hoc report, just one time, do it from the SQL Server, copy into the Excel, and give it to the user. Okay, so just want to make sure, because when you create the reports, you have to create a template and you have to set everything, and then you have to deploy the reports. So it's not easy that it can be created directly in like in 2-3 hours and then will be put on the server. Okay, so just wanted to make sure you understand between ad hoc one-time report and the reports that we're going to create on the SSRS. Okay, all right. So once you open create the new project in the SSRS, you're going to see the Solution Explorer on your right, and then you have you're going to see the SSRS toolbox once you create a report in here. Okay, so right now in the Solution Explorer, you see the project name, what project name you have given. Then you have the shared data source, you have the shared data sets and the reports. Now what is the shared data source? The shared data source is, let's say if you have 50 reports in your project, okay, and what you want to do is, you don't want to create connection every time to your database. What you can do is, you can create a shared data source by adding a new data source and use the same data source in all of your reports. Okay, now how does it matter? You don't have to create 50 connections, first thing. Other than that, when you deploy on the server, if your server name gets changed, you have to go on each report and then change the server name if you're using a data source which is in the report. But if you're using a shared data source, then you just change at the shared data source level the server name, and then all the reports will be automatically changed because they're using the shared data source. Okay, so that's the advantage of having a shared data source. Whenever there is something, connection string changes, you make change at one place, that the changes will be automatically migrated or will be automatically propagated to all the 50 reports. Okay, so just go in here, give your data source name. So let's say it's mine is AdventureWorks. Okay, AdventureWorks. Now it's a SQL Server connection, and then I click edit. Okay, and then how you put your server name, you put your server name, whatever your authentication mode is. Okay, and then you select the database name. So let's say mine is AdventureWorks, on which I want to create a report. I make sure the connection is valid, the connection is succeeded, click OK, and then click OK. That's it. Okay, now one more thing in here. What is this second window credentials? Okay, now what happens is, when you go in here and you are using a SQL Server authentication mode and you want this password to be saved, what you can do is, for the saving of passwords every time when the report is deployed, you can put the credentials in here. Use this server name and password. So you put in here, so it will be embedded in the project. Okay, the username and the password. All right. So that's the advantage. If you have the SQL Server authentication mode, you put the username and the password in here, and it will be embedded into the report. Okay. All right. You click OK. Your shared data source will be created. Now, what is the shared data set? The data set is nothing but it's a query that has columns in it. So if you write a query, select star from one table, okay, and you know that data set will be used in all the reports. So let's say you're doing a get date, whatever the date, or you want to put your company logo. Okay, so what you want to do is that company logo will be same in all of your reports, right? So what you can do is, instead of creating the data set in each report, you create it in the shared data set, and all the reports will be referenced to this data set. We're going to see how can you do that. But the data set is nothing but a source for the columns, what you want to put in the report. Okay, that's what the data set is. So you write a query, and all the columns in that query all together makes a data set. Okay. Now the last thing in here is the reports. So when you have the reports, you right click on that, you will see a couple of options. You will click on add new report. Okay, it will add a report to your folder, or you can say, okay, I want to add an existing report which I have in some other folder. So you click on existing item, you navigate through that report where you have, and you can bring it in this project. Okay, that's the one option you have. Or you can say, okay, so you go in here and then you find the report and then open it. It will put that report. If it's in the other project and you want it in here as well, you can do it. Or what you can do is you can say add new report. Okay, or you can go add new item. It's the same thing, and you say report. Okay, all right. So you select report and add a report. So we are adding a report to our reports folder. Okay, so this is our first report that we're gonna add to our project. Once you add the report, once you add the report, you will see in here the report data, right? So here you have Solution Explorer on your right, on your left, it's a report data. Okay, all right. Now let's give this report a meaningful name. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to give this report name as Tabular Report. Okay, so the Tabular Report is nothing but simple table structure, and then it's just created in the SSRS. Okay, so the Tabular Report is simple report just with the table. All right, now once you give the name, we're gonna come on this side, on the left side. Okay, the report data side. In here you have couple of things. Built-in fields. Okay, these are the fields that you can use. So let's say if you have the report that is of 6 pages. Okay, so if you want to put the page number, if you want to put like how many total pages are there, so basically what time that it's executed on, or like who is the user ID who ran the report, those kind of things you want to add, you can take from here. Okay, so this is more inbuilt parameters. Okay, or not parameters, inbuilt fields that can be put on the report just to make report more intuitive, like what you can get from the report. Okay, so now the second thing is parameters. Now what are parameters? So let's say there are two different kind of reports, parameterized reports and unparameterized reports. Okay, so it's basically the parameter is at the runtime you can pass the parameter. So let's say if you have a report that runs for your sales data, and when you click on the report, it will open up the report and it will give you all the data what you have since you started the company. Okay, now what you want to do is you want to restrict those rows and you want to put filter on your report. So what you can do is you can create a parameter on the report, and in that when you run the report you can pass, okay, I want to run the report from particular date to date. Okay, so if you run for 1 month or 1 day, you pass that in the report, and then the query will run only for that data. It won't bring everything. So the parameterized report are basically when you want to pass parameters from outside and you don't want to see everything. So it's basically when you want to give user the ability to filter the data, you use the parameter. Okay, now the next thing is the images. So if you want to add images that is residing in your Windows Explorer somewhere in your location, okay, you can add those reports to your SQL Server. Sometimes there are, why do you need the images in the report? If it's a company logo, you need an image, right? So it depends on how the image is stored. If you have the image somewhere in your folder, you add it in your report and then it will be inbuilt with the report. Okay, it will be embedded in the report, the image. Okay, so that's the one way of doing it. But before doing it, think of, if you are doing this way, if the company logo gets changed and then you have 50 reports, how are you gonna handle that? Okay, so we're gonna see all those kind of things, whether it's a good idea to add image from here, or what are the other ways you can bring images in such a way that if the company logo gets changed in future, and if you have 50, 100 reports, how can you just make one change and then every report will get the new logo? Okay, so we're gonna see that. So this is just for, so all the things you see on the left side is for a particular report. Okay, it's not the shared one. So whatever you do on this side, on the left side, will belongs to that individual report. Okay, so if you add an image in here, that will be only for this report. If you create a new report, you have to add it again. Okay, so if you do 50 reports, you have to do 50 times the same thing. Okay, that's what you not want to do. All right, so this one is more the report, and this one is more for the project on this side. Okay, all right, now the next is the data source. So like the project has its own data source, the report also has their own data source. If you want the data source to be embedded in the report and you don't want to go with the shared data source, you can create your own data source in here. You have to create a data source in the report. Either you can embed your new data source, or you can use the shared data source. In either way, you have to create a data source for the report. You have to say, okay, I'm going to use my shared data source, or I'm going to use a new data source. Now, why do you need, let's say, why do you need a separate data source? Sometimes there are reports, let's say I have one report that uses a separate different data source that is not used in any other. So what I'm going to do is, instead of creating a shared data source, I can create a data source in here, and then it will be just particular to that report, and I know I'm not going to use it for any other report. Okay, so for those kind. Now, to create the data source, we're going to just click on add data source. Now when you see here two options, embedded connection and use the shared data source reference. So if you want to use this one, you click in here, the drop down will come, and then you can select that shared data source. Okay, if you want to create a new one, the same thing, you click on embedded connection. So this connection will be just for the report. You click on the edit, add your server name, database name, check connection, that's it. Okay, for the credentials of this kind of things, you can save it here. So it's the same window, just you have one more option in here for using a shared data source inside the report. Okay, all right, I'm going to click in here. Right now I'm going to use the shared data source. Okay, click OK. All right, so once you see an arrow pointing to this one, it means it's a shared data source. Okay, now make sure when you create a data source in the report, you give it a proper name. Okay, Adventure Works. All right, now in here, the next thing is the data set. Okay, so right now how you do it. So let's say if you want to create a parameterized report, what you need to have report. Once you do a report, you need to create a data source first for the report. You won't be going by parameter adding and then image adding. Now, first create the data source. Once the data source is available, make the data set, and then you can start adding parameter once you have the data set. Okay, because you need to map the parameter with the data set. We'll go into the details. Okay, so now what you need to do is you need to create a data set. Okay, in here in the report. Any question before I go further? And here you have the design. So this one is your design report where you're going to put all your template or report. And then if you want to see, you click on preview. Okay, so if I click on preview right now, you're not going to see anything. So you have design in the report, just design and preview, two things. Okay. Why it's taking two? What time today? Once you make the data source, you go into the data set, you right click and click add data set. So once you click on add data set, you have two different options in here. Either you can say use the shared data set what you have created in here. So if the data set you have that you need to use for every report, okay, you can use that one. Or you can say, okay, the data set for this report that I'm going to create will be specific to this report. Okay, so for that scenario, you can say I want to use an embedded data set. Okay, all right. So I'm just going to say data for employee in here. Okay, this is my data set name, employee. Now it's saying what is your data source. So if you have multiple data source, it's going to show you all and then select what is the appropriate data source. Once you select that, you have either you want to write the query or you want to do a stored procedure. Okay, if you click on stored procedure, it will okay. Once you do the stored procedure, it's gonna show you all the stored procedures that you have in the adventure works. Okay, all the stored procedures you have in the adventure works. All right. Now let's say first we're gonna do how can you do a text queries. Okay, so you come in here, you write your SQL statement, and you get your query build, and then you put in your query in here, and then you will be clicking OK. If you want to use the query designer, you can use that. Okay, if you know how to write good SQL, always good idea to write a SQL. Otherwise, you can use a GUI to write the SQL query. Okay, so you click on query designer, you pick the tables you want to. And then, so you pick your tables that you need in your query. Here you go. And then what you can say is add tables in here in the GUI. So let's say I'm gonna add person.contact. Okay, the table. I click add, and then you can have the columns that you need. So if you need more tables, you can keep adding the tables. Okay. If you don't need more, you just click close. If you need all columns, select all columns, or if you want title, first name, middle name, last name, suffix, email address, so all the columns that you need, you pick. Okay. And if you want to change that column title, like we do in the SQL as alias by typing as, and if you want to change the column name, you can do it in here. Okay. If you want to sort, you can put it in here. So it's one and the same thing how you write query or how you use the SQL. So if I put descending, see it says order by title descending. Okay, so you can do all those things in here. Now if you want to write a where clause, you can put where in the query you can put where title equals to manager, or you can put it in here. It will create a where clause for you. Okay, see it will put the where clause for you. Okay, so it just depends on how you want to do it. Okay, so once you create the query, you click OK. All right, the query will come here automatically. Now what you just need to do is you need to click OK in here. Okay, so once you add all the columns you need, you create the query. That's it. Now what is next? This is your design area for the report. Okay, so first what we're gonna see, there are different kind of reports in the SQL server, SQL server, in the SSRS. You can create tabular report, you can create drill down report, you can create drill through report, you can create parameterized reports, you can create matrix reports. So we're gonna go through all the different kind of reports you can create in the SSRS. Okay, so first we're gonna go with the straightforward report, that is your tabular report. How can you just create a report in the table form? Okay, you right click, you say I want to insert a report, and you say I want to insert a table. Okay, so once you insert a table, it will go in and put a table in here. Okay, all right. Now let's say in here the first one is your header. Okay, so what is the report column header? So if I add a title in here, whatever the header name you want to give will come in here, and after that the data will be there. So just let's go ahead and drag and drop column one by one. So I'm going to drag title to the first name, last name, okay, and you just keep adding suffix. So you see, right now there are only 4 columns. If I want to add, what I can do is I can right click on the last column and say insert column to the left or to the right. Okay, or what you can do is if you just drag and drop a new column, and if you put it at the end and you see this blue bar in here, once it shows up and you leave your click on this one, once you leave the click, it will automatically add a new column in there. So you don't necessarily have to go and insert column one by one. What you do is you just drag and drop and take ones that appear, you leave it there, okay, and you keep adding it like that. Okay, now this is just your simple tabular report. That's it. So this is a very basic report. We didn't do any formatting yet, but that's it. Your report is ready in very raw format. That's not like your data. Yeah, it's something else that I don't know. Reports, it's not quite good formatted, right? If you see the column, it's like short. All the columns are like same space, and then the phone number, like few of the characters going in the next line. So you need to do proper spacing on the columns. Okay, that's what the formatting is. And even if you see right now, there is no difference between header and your data. So what you need to do is you need to do the formatting. You go in here, you make it bold, make it more colorful. Say like go in here on the format, say I need the column color on the background is, let's say I need some light color. You put that color on the background, it looks little better now, but not that good, right? So what you need to do is you need to expand the columns. What you know it's big columns, okay, and then what you know it's short one. You say you put it as a short, and then if you preview now, it will look little better. Okay, you see now you. So basically, the column it won't be adjusted by itself. You have to go in there and adjust the report data, okay, or adjust your columns. So uh, that's what you need to do in the format. So while you will be doing a formatting, what you need to do is you go to the format. So if you want to change the font's color, okay, you click on foreground color, and if you pick red, then the the font will change. Okay, if you go to format, you pick background color, this background will change. Now this is what we did for our header. If you want to do something for your data, you have to select the second row. Okay, you select the second row, you do I need a font as italic or underline or bold. You click on that and your font will change. Okay, if you go to format, if you want to justify everything to the center, all the columns, you click on center, everything will be center. But let's say you don't want everything to be center. So what you can do is you can select particular column and then you can move it around and say, okay, I want this column to be left, I want this column to be left, and if it's a number column, I need it on the right. So let's say if this is the number column, I want it to start from the right. So you can do either on the row level or you can do at the specific column level, the formatting. Okay, then uh, if you want to, if you go in here and preview, and you will see, okay, the spacing between these for the header is less. I want more spacing. Okay, what do I mean is, let's say if you need more column header to be more wide, what you can do is you can just click in here, okay, and then you see the double arrow pointing on both sides. You click on that one and you expand this. Okay, so in that case, your uh, column header would be expanded. So these are more like the formatting thing. Now, if you see, these are hanging like on the top. You want it in the between, you go in the format, and then you say, okay, uh, justify to the center. Okay, all right. Alright, so this is how you have the different options in here, like for the formatting of the reports. Okay, we can see more formatting as we're gonna go further. Okay, all right. Now let's say uh, when you view the report, there is no information about the report. What is the header name? Okay, this is just the report that has the data and that has the header. Now, what about if you need the header in here? Okay, what you need to do if you want to give a report name? What you do is you right click and you say insert a text box, and then you start typing the name in this one. So let's say this is my employee information, employee information. You type what you need in here as your report header. Okay, then you select the box, you expand the box, and then you do the formatting on this one. Okay, if you need it on the left, you do all the way to the left. Okay, so when you do all the way to the left, it doesn't mean it's all the way to the left. There is already a margin on the page which is left out. Okay, so it's not you're starting from all the way to the left. So you don't have to put something like, you don't have to leave the space or margin in here. The margin is already left, and after that what you're getting is the space. Okay, so you can put all the way to the left. Now you need this one to be bigger. What you can do is you just go to format and then you say, okay, I want fonts to be bold. If you need bigger font size, what you can do is you can right click on the text box and you go to the text box properties. Okay, so if you want more options, so you see in here for this text box you have all these options. What is your if right now this number is not applied on this one, but let's say how you want the alignment. Okay, you want it to be left, right, center, horizontal alignment. How do you need the vertical alignment? Okay, in compared to that box. Okay, and then what are the fonts you want to select? What is the size you want to select? How you want bold, italic, uh, the different colors, and the line spacing if you want. Okay, if you need a border out of the box, you can create the border. If you want to fill color in that box, you can fill the color. Right now it's no color. If you want to use image in the background of that, you can use the image in here. Okay, now so we can see all these options, but right now I'm just going like the fonts option, the border option, that we're not going to apply every time. It's just in there, and when you try to create, just you have to go in there and select. Okay, those kind of things. But for the images and those things, we're going to see. Now, don't worry about the visibility and the interactive section. We're going to cover this in more detail. But for the format wise, you can come in here and select it. So this is more for the report one. Okay, but let's say if you want to do apply certain formatting on this column, you can right click and you can go to the text properties of this box and you can apply. Okay, so if you want the font to be bigger or all those things, you can come in here and change. Now let's say if it's a number field. Okay, this is a number field, right? And if you want to change this number to be currency or it's a date column, you can select a date format how you want to display irrespective of how your date is stored in your database. Okay, so if you select the format, the date will be shown in the particular format how you see it here. Okay, if it's so it depends on what kind of column it is. Okay, if it's a number column, you click on number, and then if you say okay, I want up to 2 place of decimal or 1 place of decimal or no decimal places. Okay, you can define it here. If you want to use a thousand separator, you can do that. If you want to show value in thousands, you can do that. It means if it's 125,000, it's just show 125, not 1000. Okay, so let's say if you have a column with very big numbers like billions, and you don't want to say 1 billion and 2 billion, what you do is you convert that show values into billions, and what's going to happen is if it's 1 billion, it will just show 1. Then in the header you have to mention the values are in billions. Okay, like that. So this is more the number formatting. If you have the number, if you have the currencies, you can select what currency symbol you want to put in front of that currency. Okay, and then the remaining option is same as what we have seen for the numbers. If it's a date time, you can select different formats. If it's time, how precise time you need. Okay, seconds, milliseconds. You need 24 hours clock, or if you need 12-hour clock with AM and PM. Okay, okay. So the same thing with the percentage. Okay, if you need it in the power of E, more like a mathematical expression, the number as, you can do that. Okay. If you want to show it as a logarithmic or different functions, not in the 10th power, you can customize here. All right. So let's say, let's make this information a little bigger in the fonts. Okay. Let's say I do it 20, and then I say it's instead of black, I say it's a dark green color. Okay, and I see that. Okay. Now if I go in this tab, now I can see if the report, it's gonna have the header for the report. Okay, so on each page you're gonna see the okay, we're gonna see how can you when you import the report, if you want the column header to be shown on each page. So let's say right now if you have multiple pages, okay, we're gonna see how can you put header on each page. We'll see that one too. But let's say now what I want to do is, once you create the report, okay, you put the header information. Now let's say you want to put so this is basically a simple tabular report. Now sorry, the report is not sorted, right? So if you see the first name is P, J, A, and even it's not sorted on the last name. So it's basically not sorted. So in order to add first sort, what you need to do is you go to right click on here, you go to the tablix properties, because what you want to do, you want to sort everything, right? You want to sort the full data. You just don't want to sort the one column, right? You want to sort everything. So if the first name goes up, all the data corresponding to that will need to be changed. So for those kind of things, you need to go in here. You can add the sort to the tablix properties, or what you can do is in your data set, you can mention the order by. Okay. So I think in our data set, what we did was the order by for the title. Okay. So I think that's why you're getting by a title or something. Okay. But if you do by first name and then last name, it's based on how you wrote in your SQL. Okay. All those things in your SQL. Now, if you want to change it, let's say you want to do it on the report level. Okay. Not on the data set level. You can do it in the tablix properties. You go to sorting, you add a column, and then you select a column. Let's say on the first name, I want to sort the data. Click OK. Now, if you preview the data, all your data will start with sorted out. Okay, all in A, and then it's keep going. So it's easy to sort out. Now, if you want to find Andy, you know where you're gonna find it. Okay, but if you have 1 million records in the report, it would be hard for you to find. Let's say if I say Peter, find out the Peter, it would be hard for you to go on that page. What you need to do in those cases is, when you're looking for particular information, you need to create parameters on the report. So that is, next is, how can you create a tabular report, but it's a parameterized. Okay, so this one is a non-parameterized. How can you create a simple tabular report with a parameters? Okay, so I just copied the report, just do a Control C, Control V. Now I say it's a parameterized tabular report. Okay, parameterized tabular report. Now in the parameterized tabular report, what you first need to do is, you first need to, in the parameter window, you need to say, I want to add a parameter, and that parameter name, what is the parameter name? So let's say we're looking for a certain name, okay, on the report. So you say the name is what I want it to be appeared on the side of your column. Okay, so this is your name that's gonna appear. Now, what does the prompt needs to say? You can, when it asks for what you want to enter in the field, you can say just, or like type name or something. Okay, you say select, or like whatever, just it's a name field, right? Or first name. Okay, enter first name, you can say that too. All right. Now, what kind of field it is? It's a text field. If it's a date and time, you can select date and time. If it's integer, float. So right now it's a text. We select text. Do you want to allow the null values? It means, let's say the person can leave the blank or null values. If you want to allow the blank and null, you can check that one. But if you don't want to allow the blank values, then you have to select a particular values. You have to specify in here if you want to allow the null. Okay. Now the next is allow multiple values. Now, do you remember how when you write a where clause and you can say where first name in Peter, comma Andy, comma Don, or all those things? So right now, if you don't check this one, it will just take one value at a time. Simply like where first name equals to Andy. Only one, it can take one value at a time for the filter. But if you want to pass multiple values, you have to check this one. Okay. All right. You check this one if you want to pass multiple values. Now this parameter, obviously we want it to show to the user. There are certain parameters that you want to hide from the user, because what you do is you don't want to show those. So let's say if I'm running the report on my report server, okay, and that report server is used by some other application, okay. So why do I need another layer on the report manager? Because let's say let's say the company give the access to a certain application to that report. That's the thing, okay. And that application, whoever user enters into that report dashboard, they will see different things based on their user ID. Okay. So now what you can do is you can pass the report a user ID who logged in, and based on that you can see that user has the permission or what kind of permission he has on the data, whether he can see everything or he can just see like full data set or not, whatever the data you have. So let's say he cannot see all the reports, or he cannot see all the data sets in the report, or he cannot see all the data. So basically the hidden parameters are not taken by the user, but it's passed either from the report itself or from your application. Okay, so you make that hide, and the application will pass those parameters to the report, or the report itself can pass that parameter. We'll see how we can make an hidden and then we'll pass a self parameter to the report. Okay, we'll see that one, how we can work out that one too. All right. Now, if you click in OK, it will just create a parameter. We'll see the available values and the default value too. But you just click on OK. You created a parameter name called name. Okay. Now you just created the parameter. What you need to do next? Did you map the parameter to your query? No. You just created a parameter, right? So if you run the report, it will give you the name in here. There is no option in here. That's okay, because we didn't define the value. Now if you do A and view report, does it gonna do anything? No, it's not gonna do anything. It's just gonna show everything, because so what you say where first name equals to A, but is this parameter mapped to the data set? No. So what's happening is it's just taking and keeping it with itself. It's not passing to the data set. So that's why you see all the records right now. Okay. Now what you need to do is, once you create the parameter, you have to pass that parameter to your data set. Okay, where you want to do. Now what you need to do is, how do you pass the parameter? Simply you can say, either you can go to the parameters and map the parameters, okay, to your report. Okay, so if I add a parameter, what I can say is my parameter name is name, okay, and then you can say what is your parameter value. The column name is what? So here you have to mention the column name. Okay, that is, I think it's a first name on. Let's see the fields. It's a first name, right? So what we are saying is, in the first name, pass the value from outside. So if you go to the query, what you're gonna see? Let's click OK and go back to your query. So what it's doing is basically the value what you're gonna pass from your front end or from the report side, it will be passed to the first name, because you have adjusted the parameter. Or The second option, what you can, so this is your one option, okay? You can do that. Or what you can do is, you can just say in the query, you can write a where clause where it's the one and the same thing, okay? There are two different ways to do the same thing. And you can say equals to @ first name, okay? All right. Is this correct? Is this right or wrong when you say this?
No, this is wrong.
Why?
Do we call his name?
Oh, sorry. All right. Yep. Sorry, my bad. Okay. Now, yeah, sorry, my bad. I didn't use the right parameter name. Okay. Now you give the parameter name. Is this correct? This query is correct?
I think it's correct. Yeah. But do we need double and
No.
equals, right?
No, it's just single equals in here. Yes, it's just single equals. What I mean is, think of when you are. Sorry, go ahead.
The like or like. It should be like, not equal.
No, it depends on how you want it. If you want to match like, you can do like. But what I was trying to say in here is, let's say if you want to do, what's gonna happen is, you're saying equals to. When you use equal to is when you have only passing one value. But is this a one value or it's a multiple value? If it's a multiple value, then you have to change this into n. Okay? You have to change this into n. If you pass multiple value from outside, because in the parameter you said it's allow multiple values, and you say equals to, it's gonna fail. Okay? So you need to make sure you put n in there. Okay? You click OK, and then now you click on preview, and then you say, okay, I want A to view. Is there any A? Then it will show up. So there is no with the name A. There was something with A or A dot. So see, there is a dot. So it will show up just the A dot. So this is basically how you can filter. Now, if you don't know the name, so do you see, right now the thing is you have to type all the names. And if you don't remember the name of that person, or if you don't remember the correct spelling, is it gonna help to you, the filter? No, right? So right now what you did is you created a parameter and you mapped the value to the parameter. But the thing is, as soon as you create the parameter, the new thing that you need is, so it would be good if I can have the drop down values, right? And then I can check what the names I want to see, right? So in the next class, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and see how can you configure the drop down values. So if you go to the parameter properties, you have available values and the default values. Now the available values is what the values that you're going to see in the drop down. And the default value is the values that you can specify for the initial run. So right now there is no default value. When you click on preview, nothing happens. It just gives you the blank report, nothing. When you put just a default value, the report will be run for that value. So if you put the default value as A dot, that report will run for A dot. Okay, so the default values are predefined values that for which when you click on the report, you want to run the report. Okay, so in the next class we're going to see how can you we're going to see the different tabs on this report parameter: available value, default value, and the advanced. Okay. All right. So I will end in here, and then I will see you on